Hey, welcome back to our shop just outside Kennesaw here in North Georgia. Today's project, this mid-century modern style chair, I picked it up this weekend for $2.50. Come on in here, let me show you what's wrong with it. And you're looking right down on the chair where the side and the chair backrest match. And you see these right here. These are threaded inserts, and what they are is they're hollow metal sleeves, and on the outside they have a coarse thread designed to go into wood, and on the inside they have a finer thread designed for a machine bolt. So what you're able to do is run these into the wood, and you've basically got a threaded hole to run a mechanical fastener through. Well, these are pulled out of the wood that lays underneath this upholstery, and it's resulted in the chair being unusable, and there's also some other loose joints that I've discovered. So what we're going to do is knock the chair apart, take these apart, reset these into the wood, and we'll put the chair back together and maybe touch up the finish. So here we go. And we've got a hex socket here. If anybody's interested, it is 5 millimeters. And that goes into the fastener. And as I turn that, I think you can see that the insert's turning with it. So I'm just going to grab it with a pair of needle nose pliers here and see if we can back this right out of that insert. And there, I think you can see how that works. The threaded part goes into the metal and the coarse part goes into the wood. We're on the opposite side now, and I'm just going to unthread this, and let's see if the threaded insert stays inside the seat back or it comes out like it did on the other side. Feels like it's spinning. And perhaps you can see that the threaded insert has pulled out on this side as well. And it's going to be nearly impossible for you to see, but the other one remains in the seat back. All right, let me get this apart. And as you're working around the chair, you can see that we've got this stretcher. The glue joint here has failed. So we're going to knock this whole chair apart. So the next step is going to be to get the seat off, then we'll bang the chair apart. We've got the chair flipped upside down. Here's the underside of the seat. It's stamped made in Denmark, and it's held in with these 4 screws. Now real quick, I don't believe this chair is particularly old. I think it's probably one of those, I don't know if you guess you could call them a reproduction that they made and were sold through, I think it was called the House of Denmark or something like that back in the 80s and 90s. A lot of particle board, mid-century styled furniture with teak veneer on it. I think that's probably where this is from. So we're not working on a Hans Wagner, the chair here. This is just really a piece of utilitarian furniture that's styled in the Danish modern way. My plan for this chair is to fix it structurally, clean it up, and I'm just going to use it as a chair for my desk. So there's not a lot of value here. There's really very little. And there's the 4 screws we took out, and now we should be able to take this right off, which we do. Next step's to knock it apart. As I suspected, there wasn't much holding those joints together. And I've got this all taped up, and you are staring right down the hole where one of these stripped out thread inserts came out of. These thread inserts are a little different than ones I've used in the past. Very often they come with one end has either a slot in it that you can use a screwdriver or a hex to drive these in, and these don't. I could always take a hacksaw and cut a hex in here and drive it in with a screw, but what I'd like to do is use the bolt to set it in there. What I'll do is I'll put the bolt right flat there, and then I can get that pushed in and turned just the way I want. But of course, as soon as I start to turn it, it spins in here. So if I had a nut that I could use to double lock it, I'd be able to use this bolt to set this in nice and tight exactly where I'd like it. So I can't find one. I've got about 4,000 pounds of nuts and bolts, but I can't find one that fits. So let me show you how we identify what this thread is, and then we can go to the hardware store and pick up a couple of nuts. And what you're looking at here is a tool called a thread checker, and basically what it is, it's a collection of measured threads with male sides and female sides, and it's just held together with a piece of wire so you don't lose it. And what you do is you take your unknown bolt, and the first thing you do is see what hole it fits in. So you can see it's too small for this one. Well, let's try the next one. That's too small for that. Let's keep going. Okay, that looks about right. Now let's see if the thread pitch is correct. And it is. It goes in nice and easy. So then you flip it over and you read what it is, and it's an M6 1.0. So we go to the hardware store, and that's what we asked for. So I will be right back. And if you're interested, this is the brand name of the thread gauge I used. I bought this on Amazon. I think it was around $40 for the metric set with the SAE set as well. It's great to have around the shop. Hope this helps. Okay, I'm back. There's my nuts. I threaded it onto our bolt here, and the next thing I'm going to do is cover these threads in wax, because we're going to epoxy this thread insert back in, and the last thing I want is to epoxy the bolt into the thread insert, because that would defeat the purpose. Okay, and then by tightening these two against each other, I'm now able to use this to drive that down inside that hole. Now the one thing I am going to do is back this up so that the end of the bolt is flush with the insert, and then cinch down our jam nut like that. And the purpose of this, of course, is to keep the epoxy out of the assembly. I'm going to get all three of these ready to go, and then we'll epoxy them. And just as a final protection, I'm going to melt some wax right on the end of this to seal it up, so we don't have to worry about any epoxy getting in there. What I've done in the past with these inserts, when you can put them in by themselves, is to fill them, pack them right full of Vaseline, and that keeps the epoxy out of there too. But between the threads, the wax, and waxing the inside of this thread, I think we'll be fine. So let's see what we can do. You know, my first thought was to mix up some two-part epoxy, some liquid two-part epoxy, use some thickener, and use that. But then I got to thinking, why don't I just use epoxy putty? It's less chance of it running, well, no chance of it running, and it should work, it will work to fill the voids and secure those threads. Now I know some of you are out there thinking, oh my goodness, you shouldn't be using epoxy in furniture, blah 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 blah. Well, look, the only other way to fix this would be to drill these holes out and plug them, and re-drill and reinsert these thread inserts. And this furniture does not deserve that kind of work, and particularly since it looks like the inside of this is probably some type of synthetic wood, And by the inside, I mean the inside of the backrest. It's not a solid piece of teak or anything like that. It looks like it's either particle board or some similar thing. So this is the appropriate fix, in my opinion, for a piece of furniture just like this. So let's get to it. Okay, we'll take our waxed bolt and jam nut assembly. And work it and the putty right in there. And there you go. I hope you can see that. It's surrounded all around by the epoxy putty, and it's secured at the bottom as well. We've got the bolt out and our jam nut out, so we're just going to let that set up. Okay, I got 2 more to do. Let me get to it. And while the epoxy is cooking, I'll start cleaning out these holes in preparation for re-gluing the frame. Just using an 1/8 inch chisel here to pull out any glue there, and then I'll use a razor blade to get any glue off of here. I'll be honest with you, there ain't any glue anywhere. It's just pretty well gone. But I'll prepare these joints and then we'll glue this up. Okay, I pushed everything back together. There's no glue on this yet. I just wanted to make sure everything lined up and then make sure that the repair that we did, we didn't have a problem with the alignment of the thread inserts we put in, which we don't. So I'm just going to let this epoxy set up for another 20 minutes or so. And we'll come back outside, knock this whole thing apart, re-glue these joints here, here, and here, put in some clamps, tighten this up, and let it set overnight. And then tomorrow we'll come back and we'll touch up this finish and we will be done. But this repair is done, and I hope it was of value to some of you to see how I did that. Again, there's other ways of doing it, but this worked out pretty good, and it was easy, and it only took a few minutes, so good for us. We'll be back when we glue this up. Let's glue this up in fast motion. Well, here she is all glued up. Our repairs have held up real well. In other words, they took the torque of the screws. So we're going to let this sit overnight, let the glue get hard in these joints. We'll come back tomorrow and we'll touch up the finish on this little girl and I'll put her back to work. So stick with us. We're almost done. Good morning and welcome back. Let's take the clamps off and see how we did. She's rock solid. Next step is to deal with the finish. Pull this off, we'll get to it. And this is kind of an example of what we're dealing with the finish on this piece. It just got some dings and some little paint marks from rubbing against the wall. So the first step, I'm just going to lightly clean this, and all I'm using here is just some soap and water. I've mixed a little bit of Dawn dishwashing detergent and some water, and I'm just going to wipe this piece down. get any of the soil dirt off of it, and then we'll move forward from there. With the piece wiped off with just some soap and water, I'm going to see if we can start to tackle some of these places where we have paint. And what I'm going to do, and this is a little different than what we do, I'm just taking some mineral oil. This is the stuff you can buy at, at the drugstore, and put it on some 4/0 steel wool and just lightly rub. And that very often will do a really nice job of getting this paint, of getting that paint off. And you may be asking yourself, why am I putting oil back on wood that I just cleaned? I cleaned it to get the dirt off. The oil's going on to help remove the paint, and then we're going to put an oil finish on this so it's not going to mire. Alright, let me get the rest of this chair done, and then we'll move forward. And the next step is to lightly rub this down with a, in this case I'm using a green Scotch-Brite pad. I'm just abrading the existing finish just a little bit to make it so it's easier for the finish we're about to put on to bite in. And you can see this thing is actually looking really good just with the oil. And now we're just going to wipe it down, get any powder or loose dirt or anything off. And I know it's probably hard for you all to see, but I can't tell you what a difference that's made in the way this piece looks. It's looking really nice. And there are places like right here where my finger's showing where the scratch is through the finish. So I think it's probably a good idea for us to just put a light finish over this entire piece. That's next. Okay, time for a little chemistry experiment. I'm going to mix up what should be really, I guess, a Danish oil or a penetrating oil finish. What I'm going to use is 1/3 boiled linseed oil, 1/3 of any kind of varnish or polyurethane. In this case, I'm using Armor Seal because I have it and I don't want it to go to waste. And then 1/3 mineral spirits. And I'm just going to mix these up in this little cup. I'm not going to need very much, so that's why I'm making a small batch, because I hate things going to waste. And I'll just mix this up. I don't know if I've mentioned it, but these are those bamboo skewers you get at the grocery store for making kebabs and stuff. They are handy as heck. My wife will pick me up a bundle of them, and then I just cut them in thirds on the bandsaw. I just kind of bundle them up, the whole package of them, and run them through the bandsaw all together. And they make really good stir sticks, and it's also good for getting glue down into holes and things like that. Just a little tip. Okay, our finish is mixed up. Let me show you how I'm going to put it on. Okay, I got the chair laying on its back. And there's our finish. I'm just taking a little piece of a rag. I'm just going to wipe this on. A real thin coat. Work it into the corners. And that's all there is to it. And it's got a real thin coat of this wipe-on finish that we made. I think it looks great. And if you can see, we really didn't use very much of that at all. And you saw how we prepared it. We just cleaned it, got the paint off, scuffed it up with a 3M pad, wiped it down, and then just put a very light coat of this oil finish on it. And I think it looks really, really good. So we're going to let this dry. This oil finish takes some time. Normally give it 24 hours. So I've got other things to do today. We'll be back in the shop tomorrow. We'll put this back together, put this chair back together, and it'll be done. But there's really not a lot to it, and really, if I wasn't shooting a video, I'd probably have an hour in this project, and it's easy. It's easy to do at home, and the results, I think, speak for themselves. So I'll see you tomorrow. And while we're waiting for the finish to dry, I wanted to take just a second and show you another tip. Can you see the I guess it's called pilling or piling. I think it's pilling of the fuzzy stuff on the edge of the fabric here, where the fabric fibers have been pulled up, kind of like a sweater. Well, you don't have to put up with that. There's this tool right here. It's designed to take that right off. And what you do is you just run it right along where you've got that fuzz sticking out. And you can hear it. And it pretty well takes the fuzz off. Now you got, like, for example, this piece here, that just came off with my hand. But it's a pretty handy tool. The one I use is by Conair. It's battery operated and it works real well. It's if you happen to be a reseller and you resell clothing, this thing is a real handy tool to have. But hey, just one more thing to throw in your arsenal in case it helps. Okay, she's all done, put back together. I think she looks great. You know, this isn't a very expensive chair, 15, 20 bucks maybe, but it gave me an opportunity to talk a little bit about these threaded inserts, which you see a lot now in modern knockdown furniture. The lady that sold this chair to me told me she just didn't know how to fix it. And I thought about that on the way home, and I said to myself, you know, if there's other people out there that are unfamiliar with these and need a ways of considering at least how to fix them, let me show you how I would handle it. So I did. It came out great. We took some upholstery cleaner to the seat. We cleaned the seats up. They look great. I think the finish looks wonderful, and she's ready to go back to work. So listen, from our shop just outside Kennesaw here in North Georgia, best regards, thanks for watching, take good care, and remember, it's just wood color and some shiny stuff. And if you would do me a favor, if you like the video, click the like button, subscribe, share, tell your friends, help the channel grow. We'll see you next video. Bye.